This video is sponsored by Musicbed, and at the end of the video, we're going to talk about the 2022 Musicbed Challenge that you can enter to win some amazing prizes that will seriously help your filmmaking, so make sure to watch all the way through to find out how you can win. Okay, so you just got finished editing a video and something doesn't quite feel right. You go back, you check the edits, the transitions, the color grading, and it all looks pretty good to you, but something still seems off. This is when you realize that while you were spending all of that time working on the visual side of things, you weren't paying any attention to how it interacted with the music. What is up, people? Dunna here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the importance of music in your videos. And I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks that you can use while editing to music to make your editing feel way better. The video is split into a handful of different sections, and you can use the chapter markers down below to hop around or to go back and rewatch something again. So, secure the cup, and let's drop the beat. Let's kick things off by talking about why music and editing to the music makes a huge difference of the feel in your videos. There are a couple of little psychological things happening here that you can use to influence your audience. The first one is that a video that's edited nicely with the music feels more glued together. When the visuals and the audio are in sync, they feel like one cohesive piece of entertainment. And if you really nail this, it can feel like the music that you chose was specifically written for that video. Also, we can create patterns for the audience to get pulled into, and also break those patterns to grab their attention when we want to. You can guide your audience in and out of sections of the video and point them to important cues. By rhythmically and repeatedly cutting to the music, the audience starts to feel like they know what to expect. But then, when the moment is right, if you hold on to one shot a little bit longer or cut a little bit quicker, it will bring importance to that part and make sure that the audience doesn't get bored. It's kind of like a dance. You can do the same moves over and over for a while, and that's okay, but every once in a while you want to toss in a special move or a spin to keep things exciting and fresh. Now, one thing that I want to point out early on in this video is that while this can be a helpful tool in your kit, it's not always the right tool for the job. For example, if you're doing some narrative filmmaking and there's a dialogue scene between two characters, editing to the music probably isn't the way to go, and it's most likely more important to edit around the dialogue. But if you're doing a product montage or an action sequence where the music is going to be a heavy influence in the pacing of the scene, it can really enhance that. It's an ongoing joke amongst filmmakers and content creators that choosing the right music can be incredibly difficult, and having to change that music later on can be devastating, basically. So here's a few things that you can be thinking about when choosing the music for your video. First, think about the energy of the scene. Is it fast-paced, high energy, lots of action, or is it laid back and chill? Is there a specific mood or emotion that really encompasses the scene? Start there when choosing music and look for music that also has the same energy. And just a quick plug of the sponsor, Musicbed has great filter controls when you're searching for music on their site. You can literally choose angry or sad or chill if you want. The next thing to keep in mind is the subject of your video. Think about who or what your video is about and what kind of music makes sense for that subject. If you're doing a documentary about a person who lives off the grid in the mountains, maybe some rootsy folk rock, or if it's a commercial for an electronic device, maybe some futuristic dance music makes sense. In movies and theater, music composers will write specific themes to go along with important characters, and that music will play when the character is either on screen or involved. Not only is it a hint to get you thinking about that character, it's a great way to influence your emotions surrounding that character as well. If the music is scary or angry every time we see the villain, it's a cue for us to know that that's the villain. If it's happy and triumphant, that sounds more like the music for a hero. And even though we might not have the budget to hire Hans Zimmer to write our music, we can borrow some of these principles when choosing the right music to match our subject. And lastly, when choosing the music, think about the setting in which your scene takes place. Remember those character themes that I was talking about like 12 seconds ago? Well, that can also go for locations and settings too. So if your video is on a farm, maybe a little bit of country music. If it's talking about something that happened in the 1960s, maybe a little bit of old school rock and roll. If the music matches the environment, it can really help glue things together. So let's pick some music for our scene. Okay, so I have actually already picked the music that we're using for this video, but just to show you a bit of that that process, I go to Musicbed, click on songs on the top left here, and then on the left-hand side, there are all these filters. So I can choose rock and cinematic, and then under mood, I can choose serious, because what I was looking for was kind of a rocky, energetic movie vibe. And so I went through a bunch of these, and it actually ended up being this one up at the top here, Thunderbird, that ended up being the one that I chose. And it sounds something like this. Once you've chosen the music, it's not going to do you much good if you don't know how to count music, or more importantly, how to feel music. Now, you may have just scoffed because being able to feel the beat of a piece of music is second nature to you and it seems really easy, but I taught drum lessons for long enough to know that having a natural talent for feeling the beat is a very different experience for everyone. Some people can just do it, and some people have to work a little bit harder to learn. So here are a few pointers that should help. First of all, the majority of popular music that we hear today is in what we call 4/4 time. What this means is that the music is made up of 4 beats that repeat, and we call these 4 beat sections a measure or a bar. A lot of people can probably just feel those beats naturally. They're the thing that you might tap your foot to or nod your head to. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you're having some trouble finding the beat, listening to the drums can be a good place to start. In a simple drum beat, you'll generally hear a kick drum like this on the 1 and the 3 beat, and a snare drum like this on the 2 and the 4. Something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Unfortunately, drum beats can get a lot more complicated than this, and well, songs don't always have drums playing all the time, but it's a decent place to start. Once we've figured out the beat of our song and we can start counting bars, those bars are typically in groupings of 2, 4, 8, or 16, and that makes sections of the song feel symmetrical. This will come in handy in a few minutes when we're trying to rearrange our song to fit the timing that we need. The problem with these foundational rules is that while they apply to so many songs out there, especially in current popular music styles, they also get broken constantly. So it's really important to do your best to listen to and understand the music that you choose. Even just identifying the little changes in parts of a song or the different important sections will help a lot, even if they don't fit those neat and tidy guidelines I talked about before. With that said, let's talk about actually editing the music that we chose. It's a beautiful thing when you can find a section of a song that works perfectly with the length and shape that you wanted to have for your sequence, but it doesn't happen very often, so we need to be able to cut up the music to fit what we need. This is very similar to cutting up and editing video clips, but there are a few little important things that you should know. First of all, audio files act slightly different than video files. With videos, we're used to dealing in frames. There'll be 24, 30, 60 frames per second, and we make our cuts on those frames. With audio, it's recorded in samples, and there are at least 44,100 samples per second or more depending on the file. So when we make our edits, we can get a lot finer control and be significantly more accurate, which is a good thing because our ears are ridiculously sensitive to little timing issues in music. If we try and cut a piece out and make it seamless, we need to have that extra control. That being said, if you're editing audio within a video editing software, you may need to figure out how to access the proper setting, because by default, it may force you to edit using frames rather than the samples. Potentially the most important thing when it comes to editing audio is learning how to read the audio waveforms. Big spikes in the waveform are loud sounds and might be a good place to look for kick drums or snare drums. A lot of the time we're going to want to make our cuts right at these points. So just like we would when we edit video, we want to cut down certain parts of our music to match the length and intensity of the video that we're trying to make. If the video video needs a build up, we need to find the parts of the music that will make that happen. Or maybe we need a section to be a little bit longer to fill the space. If we can find a good looping point, we can copy and paste that to take up a little bit more time. The key here is really just identifying and chopping up the parts that you might want and then trying different ways to reassemble them. And again, just like editing video, there is some trial and error involved for sure. And one of the most difficult parts of editing music for a video is finding a good ending for the music. But I have a little trick that I like to do, and I'll show you that in a second. So first things first, we're gonna have to chop this song down quite a bit. It's 3.5 minutes long, and we wanna get about 30 seconds of audio for our sequence. It starts off with this really nice long build, but we don't need the whole thing, so we're gonna do some chopping up of this section. Because there's no beat in this intro section, I can be a little more flexible with where I make my cuts, so I'm just trying a bunch of different combinations to see what feels best, and then I'm adding a crossfade transition to make it smoothly go from one clip to the next. I was able to make it quite a bit shorter, and now it sounds like this. After that intro build up, the beat comes in and I'm going to start counting. This specific song gets more intense usually every 4 bars, but what I want to do are make those sections a little bit shorter so we get through the build faster. So I'm going to get 2 bars into each section, I'm going to make a cut, and then I'm going to cut at the start of the next section and move that back. At this point, I'm just repeating the process of shortening each small section until we get to the big drop that's coming a little bit later in the song. Now, once again, this section of the song is a little bit longer than I want it to be, so we're gonna have to chop it down, but we wanna try and look for a good note to end on, something that kind of hangs out in the air a bunch. I really like the ending of that chorus section, but it goes into another section, so we're gonna have to do a couple of things to make it seem more seamless and not such an abrupt ending. So first, we're gonna find the start of that last hit, and we're gonna make a cut there. Then we're gonna bring that down onto another track, and I'm gonna duplicate it and move it way off to the end. I'm gonna highlight both of those, and I'm gonna create a compound clip. Then I'm gonna go to effects, and I'm gonna add a reverb onto that compound clip. This is where I can mess around with some of the settings in the reverb to make it nice and long. This plate reverb sounds pretty good. Then I'm going to shorten that compound clip so it's only as long as I want it to be, basically ignoring that duplicate that I made later on. Then I'm going to fade out the reverb and combine it with the original using fade ins and fade outs on each of these small little clips. And what we get in the end is that one hit with a nice smooth reverb tail. And here's what the edited music sounds like all together. You can see all the cuts on your screen. So with all that lead up, our music is ready and we can now edit our video to the music. Sometimes I'll already have done a rough draft of the video edit without music just to get the important clips on the timeline in the order I think I want them, and other times I'll get the music all ready first. There's nothing super fancy about this part of the process if you know how to cut, adjust, and move video clips around on your timeline, but there are a few little things that can help make it line up nicely. Just like when we were editing the audio, we want to be keeping an eye on the audio waveforms, and that will be the best way to know if our clips are landing with the beat. We can also use markers on our timeline as easy places to snap our video clips to. You can play the music in your timeline and press the M key to the beat or to mark important beats or spots where you might want your clips. It's important to go in and adjust these markers afterwards though, as there can be a slight delay in your marking, or you might have just been slightly out of time when you pressed it. Also, as mentioned before, audio is in sync samples and video is in frames. So there's a chance that a beat of your music may land between 2 frames and you won't be able to line the video clip up perfectly. In general, when this happens, I find it usually works best to place the clip just before the beat rather than just after it. Visually, I find this makes it feel like it's hitting on that beat better. And when you're using transitions between clips, you're gonna wanna play with the timing of the transition in relation to the music. For the most part, I find I want my transition to land with the beat of the music, so I end up placing the end of the transition over the beat rather than the center of it where the cut is between clips. So let's go ahead and see how this edit turned out. So as you can see, making sure that your music and your video are in alignment with each other can be a really effective way to step up your video productions. And as with anything else in the world of video production, all of these rules can be bent, broken, or completely ignored if that's what works to enhance the main point being put forward. But it's great to know these guidelines so you can choose when to use them and when not to. Now here's how you can put the skills that you just learned to action and potentially win some amazing prizes for it. The Musicbed Challenge is back for 2022, and Musicbed is challenging you to make the film that you've been dreaming about. There are 3 categories of videos that you can choose to make: documentary, narrative, or spec ad, and each of these categories has industry-leading judges that are going to see your work. Musicbed has selected a playlist of music for each category, and you need to use at least 10 seconds of one of the songs in your video. There will be winners in each category as well as a People's Choice winner, and the prizes are amazing and can make a huge difference for you and your videos. Submissions open on April 12th, so you can click the link in the description to download your starter kit, get all the details, and start working on your masterpiece now. This is a huge opportunity for up-and-coming filmmakers, so thank you to Musicbed for putting this on and for sponsoring this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.